Hey everyone, welcome to this year's 2020 Service Leadership Conference. Today we are presenting the LTGE training workshop. I'm International Trustee Conrad Gabriel to the Jamaica Rocky Mountain Llamas 10 District, and I am from the New England Bermuda District where I served as the 2018-2019 LTG for Division 6, and I also received the RFL Outstanding Lieutenant Governor Award.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Alexis Henry. So I am the current international trustee for the Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio, and Kansas districts. And I served as an LTG on the Florida District Board from 2018 to 2019. Woohoo, that was 10. So I'm going to go ahead and send a link in the chat. The link is for attendance. So normally what happens is an RFL requirement or a piece of it is attending if you do go to ICON, the LTG training. So this is how we're going to measure and record who came this year. So.
And then this way, me or Alexis were able to send you guys a follow-up email, and that way you guys can just screenshot it and then include it in your RFL binder so you guys have proof that you attended this workshop as well.
Yeah, so it's a Google form. I just sent the link in there, so go ahead and fill it out. Make sure you do that before you leave so we can let your districts know.
Sweet. Let's give them like a few moments before we go on.
So everyone's mics are going to be muted unless we choose to unmute you, which we'll do that once we start going into questions. We're probably going to hold questions till the end. Please use your LTG emails, if that's like your main email. If you have problems with your LTG emails, personal is fine, but try using your LTG email for the form.
And we will make sure that everyone gets their emails. So if you don't see it by Friday, make sure to check your spam because we'll definitely send it out before Friday. My goal is to get it to you guys either by the end of the day tomorrow, but if you do not see in your inbox, please check your spam. Sweet. Okay. You want to give a few moments before moving on so they can fill out?
Yep. We're going to give you all a second just to fill out the form.
We'll give them like a minute. Then we can move on. Sweet. You ready to move on?
Yep.
Sweet. Okay. So the first thing we're going to jump into for you guys is just basic LTG duties. And what I mean by basic are duties that you will see on either a monthly basis or bi-monthly basis, which Alexis will expand on when we go through the RFL requirements. But in terms of what monthly requirements look like, each LTG is expected to send out newsletters, which is basically like just content from your district board, as well as your governor, and as well as international officers such as your trustee. And these information oftentimes will include service partner information, upcoming events like Key Club Week, YOF, or Trick or Treat for UNICEF. So you want to make sure that a good tip for newsletters is to make sure that everything you include in your newsletters are timely. So let's say if it's September, you probably want to start advertising for Trick or Treat for UNICEF, which is the upcoming months of October, so they can order their boxes in time for Halloween. The next point is maintaining club communication monthly with your presidents, the executive boards of your clubs, as well as any advisors. This way you can make sure your clubs are being assisted where they need help, as well as keeping them in the loop with your newsletters and any other important information regarding your division, district board, or Key Club International. Other things may include committee work, and this of course will vary from district to district, but your committee work will be assigned by your committee chair and making sure to follow up with those just so your committees are effective on your district board. And then also be on the lookout for new clubs to charter. This is also something you should do on a monthly basis, just so we can increase membership for not only your district, but for Key Club International as a whole. And this is something that we should routinely look for just because it is kind of a harder task as an LTG to complete. And then on a monthly and bi-monthly basis, your divisional council meetings, or oftentimes referred to as officer council meetings, where you hold meetings for your divisional officer, for your clubs and your divisions, which can include presidents and general members within your clubs, where you will discuss anything that you often mention in your newsletter, as well as any other upcoming events and anything else that holds precedent within your division. In terms of duties that reflect on like a monthly basis that change, we just want to take you guys through a few of them. So in July, which is this month, what's something you guys might want to do is develop a club list of strengths and weaknesses. That way you can evaluate where each club needs help and where each club is very strong, and that way you can further assist them throughout the rest of your term. Another point you can do in July is to research any key club service partners you may have or that you want to research and start utilizing them in future newsletters if you have not already. That way your district, your division, and your club is more aware of our service partners and being able to help them engage in service partner events, such as Thirsty 30 with the Thirst Project in January/February. And then in August, you can plan potentially a president's call to help plan a smooth introduction to virtual meetings if needed, depending on the varying impact of COVID in your area, or help them prepare for the upcoming school year. This is primarily just to make sure they are ready to rock and roll as the school year starts in August/September, and to make sure that their club is ready and to be able to assist them where they need help. This is also a good time to schedule your club visits and have basically like a divisional tour with your club so you can knock off a few things in your RFL guidebook to make sure you are staying on track with your RFL, and then being able to encourage applicants for your YOF grants, which is where they can get funding for their service projects as well. So that covers July and August. Jumping into September and October, what we see in September is that you want to start encouraging early bird dues, which is basically like recognition for submitting your dues early, which is the deadline of November 1st. So being able to submit them before then a few weeks so they have processing time with Kiwanis International is fantastic. So you definitely want to advertise that a little bit earlier rather than later, especially if you want them to achieve early bird dues. As I mentioned earlier, September is also a great time to begin raising awareness for Trick or Treat or for UNICEF, just so you can order your boxes and make sure they arrive in time before Halloween so you can distribute them to your club members. Another idea is potentially host a back to school service project. It's a great way to do that, especially if you're doing something virtual. It's a great way for people to get used to our virtual format of divisional events as well. Again, this is kind of carries over from August, but encourage those YOF grants as they are tentatively due in October. And then again, this is a great time to have a fall rally where you train your officers and work with potentially with other LTGs to make sure they achieve everything they need to do. In October, you encourage early bird dues again, kind of extension of what you did in September. You encourage ordering the Trick or Treat for UNICEF, where you get those boxes in, making sure you have them for Halloween. And then you encourage your clubs to submit their YOF submissions, if not, just because I believe they are generally due in middle of October. So making sure you get those submissions for any grants you want for a service project is great. And then also begin advertising Key Club Week, which always happens in early November. So making sure you get that advertised as well. So that concludes September and October. Moving on to November and December. In November, we wanted you guys to celebrate Key Club Week, which is where you celebrate all the fantastic service you've done throughout the year thus far, and being able to recognize club members, advisors, and whatnot, and making sure they get celebrated and recognized. This is a great time to encourage regular dues. November 1st is where early bird due is dues, and then December 1st is the regular dues deadline. So if they have not submitted early bird dues, this is a great time to making sure they submit dues ASAP so they get regular due status so they don't get suspended status after December 1st. Again, another great time to plan a divisional service project, especially with the holiday season. It's a great time to plan a food drive for Thanksgiving meal dinners for your local soup kitchen and whatnot, and making sure you can utilize that. Again, you can also do this from home, replacing it if COVID-19 presents a barrier to these type of service projects. In December, you can send holiday cards to local elderly homes, children hospitals, etc., just to make sure they're welcomed and enjoy the holiday season and vibes. Dues are due on December 1st, so make sure you get those dues in, and if they're not in, they're in suspended status, so you want to get those dues in ASAP from your clubs. This is also a great point to reflect on the strength and weakness list you created in July, and seeing what else you can do as you round out the last quarter of your term to make sure your clubs are on track to being more improved for the upcoming year. And then this is a great time to begin seeking out your successor who will take your place in the upcoming service year. So that's November, December, of course. And then lastly, we're gonna move on to January/February to April. In January, you wanna find your successor for the upcoming service year and encourage a membership drive. We tend to see that January becomes a low point as this becomes a hectic time of the year for everyone adjusting to their classes and everything and whatnot. So encouraging a membership drive here is fantastic. The next point is why I said February, April, because this really fluctuates in terms of when decon season is for you. But you want to host your spring rally which is also sometimes referred to as your divisional elections, where you elect your incoming LTG. You want to complete a transition report, which is to hand off to your next LTG to ensure they know what they're doing, kind of give them an accurate reflection of your division. You want to send farewell letters to your clubs, letting them know thank you for the term and wishing them the best in the upcoming year, and then train your LTG on any divisional items before they get their district board training as well. So that's kind of the reflection on your LTG duties, both on a monthly, bi-monthly, and then as well as specific tasks from July to April as well in terms of what LTG duties should expect. Again, I think one thing that you guys should note is that these duties do vary depending on your district and what your district board and governor and adult advisors expect of you. So also listen to them, see what they say in terms of minimum requirements. Before we hand it off to Alexis to go through RFL with you guys, we're gonna jump into some resources. The first resource we want to talk to you guys about is the Youth Opportunities Fund. And so the Youth Opportunity Funds, also known as the YOF grant, is basically free money for you guys to develop service projects for your clubs to as well as supply as well as you guys. And this is a great way to take initiative of the benefits of what Key Club offers. And so you guys can use this and apply through it to fund any divisional service projects you may want to use, or advertise it to your clubs so they can also fundraise for divisional service projects as well. The timeline is generally August is when it opens, and it typically closes October 15th at midnight. However, that timeline is being changed at the moment. So make sure to check in with your incoming international trustee about when that final deadline is going to be approved for you guys. The next part is the LTG handbook, which is basically just a manual and monthly expectations for you guys. And so kind of just runs through what I went through as well as what Alexis will go through. And so don't worry about taking down the links now, because when we do email you guys your certification for attendance, we'll also include the PowerPoints so you guys have access to the links and easy for you guys to reference everything we talked about. The last thing we do want to talk about before we jump into RFL is the brand guide, which is the branding of Key Club International. It'll include any logos, fonts, colors that you guys will need, and basically kind of like represents the consistency and what Key Club International uses to represent ourselves in terms of colors, fonts, logos, etc. And the link is there as well for you guys to use. And so I'm going to hand it off to Alexis to do the RFL intro.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Quick, before we start RFL, if you don't mind changing the slide.
Do you want to go back or?
Oh, no, forward.
Yes.
Okay, so just a quick explanation of what the Robert F. Lucas Outstanding Lieutenant Governor Award is. So basically, it's some sort of binder or Google Drive where you report everything that you've done throughout the year in terms of newsletters, communication, club visits, any personal information that you want to document. And this is kind of the award to distinguish what we call an outstanding lieutenant governor from a other lieutenant governor on your board. So this is the award that you will, or I encourage you all to apply for. But it's kind of an award that requires you to work on it throughout the year. So I would not recommend waiting till the last minute to do your RFL at all. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to break down each section. So the first section is the personal statement. So the personal statement is the first thing that they see in your binder. It's kind of just, I would say, a paragraph, maybe 3, of what you've accomplished, what you've learned, what you do differently, and any other personal items that you'd want to include in your personal statement, just so the people grading can see, okay, well, this person has been an LTG. Let's see, personally, how did they grow? How did they function as a servant leader? Next is the newsletters. So you should be sending out 1 newsletter each month as an LTG. So I also put the points on here so you guys can see. You don't need to receive full points on every section in order to get RFL. I'm not exactly sure how the ratio works or how many points you do need, but just know that you don't have to get a maximum points in every section to get RFL. So when it comes to newsletters, basically what we're grading for RFL is appearance. So consistency with graphic standards. This can be district standards as well as international standards, just because there are a lot of districts that have district colors, district fonts, that kind of sort of thing. So we're also looking for content mentioning these things repetitively throughout your term. So major emphasis, that would be sort of like a long-term project that you guys did, whether it's district-wise, division-wise, or club-wise even. The Youth Opportunities Fund, so like Conrad mentioned before, reminding your clubs, encouraging them to apply for that grant. Next is the preferred charities, and then partners and co-sponsors. So a list of all of the preferred charities, partners, and co-sponsors can be found on the international website, just in case you guys can't remember all of them. But yeah, mentioning things like the Thirst Project or Trick or Treat for UNICEF or landscape structures if that's big in your district, and that kind of stuff in your newsletter. There's also going to be timeliness of cover materials, basically making sure that you're mentioning the right things at the right time. So obviously not mentioning Youth Opportunities Fund in January when the grant closed in October. And then apparently spelling and grammar, but spelling and grammar. So making sure that you guys are maintaining that like district expectation of a well put together newsletter. Okay, so club officer training, this is going to look a little bit differently this year than it might have in past years. But by November 15th, you should have planned and implemented a divisional training conference, basically a meetup of clubs. So a lot of the stuff I want to speak on personal experience about, Conrad too, just because we've been through it. So like for me personally, I hosted my divisional officer training over the summer, just because it was a lot easier for people to come because we weren't, restricted by our school schedules. But this year, now that, we're in the age of social distancing and everything being virtual, I honestly think that having a virtual club officer training is actually like a lot better than an in-person, just because it gives people a lot more accessibility and access. But yeah, so just by November 15th, it's up to you whether you choose to do it over the summer or when school comes back, whatever is more convenient for you and your club officers. A few things that you guys should have in your club officer training though, proof of Kiwanis input, whether it's inviting Kiwanians to the training, whether it's offering a Kiwanian to speak, or some sort of proof that Kiwanis did have an involvement in your club officer training. Training materials like handouts, agendas. I think printing out, or maybe I guess now that we're doing virtual, sharing a lot of resources that your districts have or the international has are always good ideas when you're offering a training, just so people can have like a visual to go along with obviously what you're saying. Face-to-face contact. So basically this part of the RFL section is kind of like measuring your visitation. So there is a visitation report that you have to fill out whenever you do visit a club. Basically it gets the signature of the president and the vice president. So alternatives, and I put this in bold, as long as your district administrator or a district officer has approved you to do an alternate video chat club visit, they are acceptable to maintain the RFL points. But just again, make sure that you guys are filling out the form and make sure that a district officer, a district administrator does know that that's what you're planning on doing to get these points for the RFL. So these could be things like DCMs, club projects, club meetings. If you're having officer meetings, they could be fundraisers, wherever there's like a good amount of club officers in one place.
And then just to quickly add on to that, Alexis, I've attended a few divisional council meetings already, and a lot of LTGs have included guest speakers, which actually make the meeting really interesting, keeps it very engaged. So always try to find a way to like spice it up by inviting your international trustee or a local nonprofit or a guest speaker to like keep things engaged.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's face-to-face contact. And next is required attendance. So this is what I kind of sort of meant when I said that not all the points are required. So it's 200 points maximum, but you get deducted 50 points for every event that you did not attend. So in this section, a lot of the people who got RFL may not have attended an international convention, and that's okay. You still get RFL even if you don't go to ICON. So you have to attend both decons, the start of your term where you would have been inducted, and then the end of your term. Now a lot of these districts didn't have decons at the beginning of your term, but if you did have some sort of virtual convention or virtual ceremony, that does count too. International convention, hi, welcome. So this would be you're counting the attendance as international convention by going to this forum. All district board meetings, whether they're in person or virtual, and then also district officer training conference, which normally would be like your first board meeting that you would go to. A lot of you guys are probably going to have that virtually. So those are your required attendance pieces as an LTG. So this is a really important section of your RFL. This is probably, I think, the most points in the RFL is this section right here. Okay. Delegates at district convention. So seeing that district conventions are still in the air, this section will probably change depending on what your district administrators say. But just to give you guys a general idea of what this means, 2/3 of the clubs in your division should be represented at decon at the House of Delegates. So basically by having all of your clubs there, it's a part of the RFL that just says, okay, I did my job as lieutenant governor, I got my clubs to decon. The second bullet point, it says, if sufficient proof that attendance at convention exceeds a club's resources or capacity verified by the district administrator, then that club will not be counted as part of the calculation. So if we do have in-person decons starting up next year, but there are certain restrictions still in place about kids traveling, just submitting a proof to that in your RFL, that's the key word there. You have to submit like an email from a club advisor saying that they don't feel comfortable coming or something, some kind of proof, and then that way the clubs won't get counted against you, and you'll be able to score more points in this section. Okay, dues collection. So Conrad also talked a little bit about this, but basically dues must be in by December 1st. After this, your club, that club that didn't submit dues will be considered a delinquent club. And there's a lot of, other things that come with being a delinquent club, but for now, let's just focus on this. So a dues report will be sent out by either the district treasurer, sec-treasurer, or some type of financial advisor on your board by your beginning of January, probably, once we go through the whole collection process internationally. So you will get some sort of form of report showing which clubs did and didn't pay dues, and that's what you put in your RFO binder. And that what I did is I put the page that had my division on it, and then I just highlighted all the clubs that paid, just to show them like, okay, yes, all my clubs paid dues this year. Okay, club growth. This section is like the tricky section of the RFL, I would say, just because there are a lot of divisions that do end up having club growth and there are a lot that don't. And this is another section, like I said, that you don't have to score. Like you don't have to score 100 points to not get RFL. So working with Kiwanis to increase the number of active clubs in your division throughout the year. So for every new Kiwanis family club, keyword being Kiwanis family club. So that means if they charter a K Kids in your division, if they charter a Builders Club, a Key Club, a Circle K, an Action Club, or Kiwanis Club, all of those count towards club growth in this section. And then reactivated key clubs up to 2. So if you do end up reactivating a key club, that'll get you 50 points. If there is a chartered club in the K family, you'll end up getting 100 points. Like I said, it's not a big deal if you don't charter. It's not a big deal if you don't reactivate, because there are other ways to score points for RFL. And submission of new officer information. So by September 15th, what a lot of your main goals as LTGs will be up until that point is collecting all of the officer information for your clubs. So this is like mostly emails, phone numbers for all the club officers as well as the advisors. So if you do get this submitted to your district by September 15th, you'll get 100 points. If you do it by October 15th, you'll get 75 points. Division-wide functions. So this is another section that is like you may get it or you may not. So the division-wide function does not include a DCM. So this means you would have to host an event outside of a DCM, whether that's a fundraiser, whether that's a service project, or like a social meetup. So yeah, what I did my year was we did a beach cleanup and actually ended up raining. And instead we ended up at a kind of like a halfway house for teen runaways and a lot of kids who ended up being orphans. And what we did is kind of just cleaned up a little bit, folded clothes, talked to the kids. So planning a division-wide function outside of a DCM is important, and I suggest you guys all start on that right away because it is logistically harder to do than planning a DCM. Okay, so there's two parts to communication in the RFL section. I just split them up so it's easier to read. So part one, you're supposed to communicate regularly, obviously with your club officers. And so you're supposed to submit sufficient proof that communication throughout your lieutenant governor term has been above and beyond. So proof like this could be emails that you've sent, don't include your newsletters. So newsletters go in the newsletter section. But if you sent emails about reminders or anything like that, also I know a lot of LTGs who have district office or divisional office or group chat. So if you have a group chat with all your presidents or all your secretaries or something like that, and you actively communicate with them, screenshot those and put them in your RFL. If you have an Instagram or a Twitter, put them in your RFL. If you, I don't know, use GroupMe, put that in your RFL. And this is just an extra 50 points right here in the communication section. Okay, part two. So you're required to email or call the following people at least once a month: district governor, secretary treasurer, or secretary treasurer, administrator, and club presidents. Now, what it means by call or email, emails could be just you CCing like your governor, your secretary, your treasurer. So if it's regarding dues, CC your treasurer. If it's regarding officer information forms, CC your secretary. If it's regarding something for your committee, CC your governor. And that just shows that you've communicated with them throughout your term. Okay, and monthly reporting, each district does it differently, but basically making sure that you're completing your LTG reports on time. Keyword being on time. Yeah, so that goes 50 points towards your RFL. And then almost there. Service to home, school, and community, 150 points maximum, 5 points deducted for every hour below 50. So as lieutenant governors, you have to do at least 50 hours of service through your home club. So basically for the RFL, what I did was I had my club advisor just print out what off of our like district website where I would record service hours. Having a letter from your advisor saying you completed 50 hours is also fine, but you do start losing points if you don't complete 50 hours. So start doing service while you're at home or during the summer when we don't really have a lot to do, because it does catch up with you as the school year starts and as you do get busier. And then a recommendation. So there is a recommendation letter that's required for the RFL. It's 25 points. So the letter can be written by a district administrator. It could be written by a Kiwanis leader in your division, a Key Club district executive, or something other of an equivalent stature. For me, I had my Kiwanis LTG write my letter. I know a lot of the other LTGs during my term had their what we call zone administrator, but if you have like a regional advisor or something like that, they're a good person to reach out to. So yeah, 25 points for the recommendation letter. And lastly is miscellaneous. So this is 100 points maximum, but basically any other evidence that you've went above and beyond as an LTG, anything that was so special that you feel like it needs to be included in your RFL. I don't think I put anything in this section when I applied, but I do know, like, I think someone on my board had, so there was a hurricane that hit. And her division had kind of been, a little bit less strong than it was before. So here she kind of submitted a lot of the fundraising and service projects and stuff that she'd been doing in her division where they were directly impacted by the hurricane. And that's just an example of a miscellaneous item that goes in your RFL. But like I said, I didn't submit anything for miscellaneous. Questions now. Okay, so how we're gonna do this, there's a Q&A section in the Zoom, not the chat, the Q&A. Go ahead and put your questions in there. So Mr. Peterson and I will go through them and we'll try to comb through the questions. We're expecting there to be a lot of repeats, but yeah, so we're gonna start combing through. So the Q&A section, not the chat. And then Conrad and I will answer both. Okay.
We've already got a question on a link to the visitation report.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, both Conrad and I received the RFL last year. Okay, can a division-wide service project count towards the 50 hours for RFL? Yes, any service that you do complete through your term counts as the 50 hours. What should clubs expect from an LTG club visit? It depends. A lot of your clubs might ask you to speak. It just depends on the event you're going to. So like I went to an induction ceremony and I spoke there. I've been to club meetings and I didn't speak, or I've been to officer meetings. It just depends on what you're going for, but I would always double check with the club president to make sure that if there is something that they want you to do, you have it prepared beforehand.
Either of you, what is recommended for current members who want to run for an LTG?
Oh, that's a good one. I would say get in contact with your current LTG. If you know who that is, there should be a list on your district website. You should be able to find your current LTG. But really just maintaining, like an active status within your key club. And then once elections come around, you sort of get more into like the specifics of running for LTG. Let's see. If you started a new club after the new officer info deadline, does that deadline still apply? So like that happened to me. Like I chartered a club after the officer information deadline. That doesn't count. It's just current clubs that you have already set in the system.
Conrad, you take this one. Being a current member wanting to run, how do you shake off the nerves?
So in terms of running, I was actually appointed to LTG just because the person who actually ran stepped down just because of other commitments. So I was appointed there. So international trustee was my first actual position where I ran for it. And so in terms of advice for running, like you honestly, like sometimes you just have to like go head first into it without thinking. And honestly, that really helped me because because these positions shouldn't deter you from like running or like actually being part. It's open to anyone. And so as long as you have the dedication, commitment to it, honestly, you find the right people to support you, find the right people to mentor you, including those who have already been in those positions. And that will help calm your nerves and actually get you into the groove of things for running.
Oh, this is a good one, Conrad. What sort of expectations should we have for timing, scheduling, and overall time dedicated to the management of clubs?
Honestly, it varies based on how big your division was. But in terms for me, when I was lieutenant governor, I had about 8 clubs in my division. So I think on average, I spent about 2 hours a week alone just focusing on club communication, making sure that clubs got the proper resources, got the proper information they need for certain events. So you basically, in terms of communication, you beyond just like those monthly divisional council meetings or president calls, you also want to maintain weekly communication, keeping them updated with anything that changes in terms of your division, anything that changes within Key Club International, and just making sure that when the information gets to you, you send it to them ASAP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say it just depends on you, but it is a big thing for LTG, something that I struggled with at the beginning was deadlines. So just stick to your deadlines, and you guys will be fine.
What was the hardest section for you guys to achieve in the RFL? We only have 57 questions awaiting us.
For me, it definitely was club growth and club chartering, just because most of the clubs within my general area where my division existed either had a key club already or they had like a rotary. So that was my primary focus. But when it got down to like K Kids and Terrific Kids and stuff like that, it was also a little bit harder just because they've never heard of what those were before. So I think that was fairly hard. But again, you don't have to earn every point. But again, this is something you can mention in miscellaneous or in that section specifically where you did attempt to do this, but you weren't successful. And sometimes that's also valid.
That's true. For me, I think it was officer information forms because I struggled because I had a lot of clubs that weren't active like the previous year before I became LTG. So it was a lot of like tracking down people and figuring out who was doing what in order for me to get those forms filled out. Yeah, that was very, very hard in the beginning. But yeah, you get through it.
Questions that roll together about the 50 hours. Is that for the whole year? And is that for your club or you personally?
Whole year, personal hours. So you will perform them through your home club, though. That's how you get the hours.
Does your RFL have to come in on an online document or a tangible real life binder?
Conrad and I had talked about this, and it's still an ongoing conversation.
Yes.
But for now, just go with what your district is doing. So follow up with your district administrator and your governor.
And that's also mainly because your district is the one, or your adult advisors are the ones, or the district DAs are the one grading these. So you definitely want to go with what they say as well.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good one that we should have gone over. What's the difference between a division and a district?
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Connie.
So a division is basically what you guys are in charge of. Your division is where clubs are compromised. A district board or like the district is what divisions make up. So divisions are tiny pieces within districts, and each LTG combined with the executive board, which is often the governor, secretary, treasurer, editor, webmaster, make up the district board that helps oversee your district. So the division is just one tiny little piece that is often very crucial to how a district functions, but it gives you like kind of like an idea of how the district looks like.
Can you run for LTG more than 1 year?
Yep. I had repeat LTGs on my board.
Trying to summarize some questions here. What is the best position next to run for after LTG?
Oh, up to you, really. That's a really big question that you'll come up, like that will be going through your mind towards the end of your term. But a big piece of that is just while you are an LTG, just look at, your district treasurer, your secretary, your governor, your webmaster, talk to them, get a feel for what they do, and figure out what you like. Like me, I hate taking minutes. So I was like, secretary, no, not for me. But if that's something that you like and you like taking minutes and doing attendance and that kind of thing, then maybe secretary is for you.
Yeah. Also, don't, I know this happens a lot, but don't get scared off because your counterparts are running for a position that you like. Honestly, if you end up running for a position that you don't like, it won't be an enjoyable term. So definitely follow your passion regardless of who else is running.
Yeah.
When do you start the process for running for LTG, and how do you start?
Typically, you start about February, I would say, depending on when it all depends on when your decon is. But how you start, get in contact with your current LTG, say, hey, I'm from so-and-so high school. I'm interested in running for LTG. There's a couple of forms that you'll have to fill out. And then from there, depending on your district. So my district does what we call Spring Zone Rally. So we actually elect LTGs at a it's a couple of divisions that come together and they go through the elections process at like a mini conference prior to decon. So like some districts you will get elected as an LTG, or not elected, but you will have your placement as an LTG prior to district convention. And some district convention, and some districts they elect you right at decon. But I say get in contact with your current LTG around January, February.
These questions all are together. What's the most overwhelming part of being an LTG? Do you get to do stuff with your home club? And how do you balance your time between your school and all the LTG things?
Wow.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so for me, what was the most overwhelming time, I guess, was October, November, just because for me, that's when school got the most busiest. And as well, that's when I felt like I was very busy in terms of Key Club, because that's where I started thinking about like, oh, what's next? Kind of like the halfway mark through your term, then being able to make sure you have your officer training, any divisional meeting, getting the holiday season set up in terms of service project. So that felt overwhelming. But in terms of how I managed it, is I'm a big fan of blocking my schedule so it prevents burnout. So basically what that means is that I dedicate X amount of time per day to Key Club and whatnot. And so that way, whether or not I finish, I stop there. So I prevent burnout and I just continue it to the next day. And that blocking also reinforces the idea that you have to prioritize some things. And so that means, oh, today I need to get done my due submissions or send out my due reminders, and tomorrow I can focus on the agenda for our upcoming divisional meetings. So blocking was also something that was helpful for me.
I agree with Conrad about the time. About October, November, December, going into January, that's when you're going to have to deal with like a lot of the deadlines in terms of dues, YOF, but also come January, all your districts are going to start planning convention. So that gets a little overwhelming sometimes, splitting up into committees or planning forums or that kind of situation. Something that I learned my LTG year that actually really helped me was productive procrastination. It's basically like, because for me, I don't know what it is, but if I'm not interested in something, like I can't really sit down and do it. So what I would do is if I was say I was working on my newsletter and I was getting tired of it and I felt myself becoming distracted, I would stop doing my newsletter and I would say, start doing committee work. And that way it kind of like switched gears for me. So I was productively procrastinating working on my newsletter while still doing stuff that I had to do eventually.
How do you charter a new club in Kiwanis?
Okay. So I chartered 2 clubs and I reactivated 1 club. So my Kiwanis club was fairly strong, which I will say is a huge advantage. So a lot of the times your Kiwanis is the one that reaches out, but feel free to reach out to the school yourself. So if there is a school that is considered in your divisional line, and a lot of your districts do have like maps where you can see, which division is where. If there is a school that you're like, hey, this school seems cool, doesn't have a Key Club, I'd like to charter one. A lot of the times it's kind of I would start by emailing the principal, explaining what Key Club is. Please explain what Key Club is, and how that would benefit them and their students. And the next step is finding an advisor. Once you do that, a lot of the times Kiwanis will sponsor that club and they'll pay the charter fees. If not, that is something that you have to manage, figuring out how you're going to come up with the $600 fees to actually charter the club. But it is quite an extensive process. I promise you, it's worth it though, because I did get to go to like the induction and the charter ceremony, and it was actually really cool. But there is no pressure for you to charter a club or reactivate a club at all. It's up to just you managing your clubs and being the best LTG that you can be.
What if you've run for an LTG twice and didn't get the position? How would you approach the next election?
I would talk to the current LTG, like see what they did. And maybe, reach out to club members or presidents and say, hey, what do you want in LTG?
And then oftentimes district boards also have committee positions. So that's an alternative if you don't get LTGs, to look into what other leadership opportunities the district offers you as well.
Mm-hmm. International too. We have member reps in our committees.
Do the service hours from DCM count as a service project?
Towards the 50, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I guess that's what they're saying.
As long as they're properly recorded, yes.
What did you have to give up to be an LTG or an international board member?
A lot. Short answer.
Before I was an international board member, I was a competitive dancer, and it just so happened that every single competition overlapped on my district's decon, so there was no way that I was going to be able to go to both. So I gave up that, but it was still worth it. I love being in IT. Like, I can speak from personal experience. It's like the highlight of my high school career.
Yeah. Same thing for me, just because I found most events tend to be the best during the school year on a weekend day. So for me, I did debate, so that meant I sacrificed a lot of my tournaments. But I think once you guys get to the end of your terms, I think you guys will realize the sacrifices you do make are worth it, because it really does bring you a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
How would you incorporate major emphasis into your newsletter?
Well, that's a good one. Conrad?
So major emphasis, so that focuses on our children, our future. So best way to incorporate that is just talk about this, and then just give out some service partners that you can work with to get achieve major emphasis, which is like Children's Miracle Network or March of Dimes.
I'm trying to summarize because we're at our bewitching time. Do you all have your contact information so people can get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I'll actually end up including that in the email that I'll be sending out, which will include your certification, your this workshop slideshow, but then we'll also include our personal information so you guys can continue to reach out if we don't get to your questions today.
I'm just going to put my email in the chat. Conrad, if you can do the same real fast.
Yeah. I think I can do it without. Okay, yeah, sweet.
Okay.
There's no way to really summarize, and we're at our time. So I think we just need to go on. And if when they get the material, if people still need answers, don't hesitate to email Alexis and Conrad and get from there.
Yeah, especially with the amount of questions, I'll try to make it a priority to get this email out to you guys ASAP so you guys have it referenced. But again, our emails are also in the chat for you guys to reference as well.
Yep.
That's good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.